On July 28, 2010, Airblue Flight 202 took off on what was supposed to be a totally routine flight from Karachi to Islamabad, but it never landed. Today, we're going to break down just how a stormy morning and a string of disastrous human errors led to an absolute national tragedy.
So this is the question that's at the heart of it all, right? You've got a modern Airbus A321. You've got one of the airline's most experienced captains in the cockpit, and yet it ends up as the deadliest plane crash in Pakistan's history. So how on earth does that happen? Well, to figure it out, we've got to start with the weather they were flying straight into.
As they were getting close to Islamabad, the plane was flying into a massive monsoon. And I'm not talking about a bit of rain. We're talking torrential downpours, super thick clouds, and visibility that was next to zero. This was the kind of weather that pushes even the best flight crews to their absolute limit. And right away, it forced them to make a really critical choice. Okay, so the airport in Islamabad basically gave the crew a pick-your-poison kind of dilemma. They could land on runway 30, which had an advanced instrument landing system, an ILS. It's perfect for bad weather. It pretty much guides the plane down automatically. The big problem? A nasty tailwind, which could push the plane too fast and make it overshoot the runway. Or they could go for runway 12. The wind was perfect, but it had no ILS. To land there, they'd have to do it completely by eye.
So if they chose runway 12, they'd have to pull off something called a visual circling maneuver. And believe me, this is a seriously high-stakes move. It means you fly toward one runway, then you have to break off, circle the entire airport at low altitude, and line up with the other runway, all while keeping the airfield in your line of sight. Now, doing that in clear skies is tricky enough. Trying to do it in the middle of a monsoon, surrounded by mountains, it's one of the toughest things you can ask a pilot to do. So the weather was obviously a huge problem. But as investigators would later find out, the real storm was the one brewing inside the cockpit. The relationship between the two pilots was about to become the single most dangerous factor of this entire flight.
Let's meet the crew. In the captain's seat, you have 61-year-old Pervez Iqbal. He's one of Airblue's top guys, with more than 25,000 flight hours. That is a staggering amount of experience. And then, in the right seat, there's First Officer Muntajibuddin Ahmed. He's only 34. Now, he's a former F-16 fighter pilot, which is impressive, but he has less than 2,000 hours in commercial jets. Right there, you have a massive gap in age, rank, and just raw time in the air.
And this authority gap became a huge problem fast. You won't believe this, but just 11 minutes after takeoff, the cockpit recorder picked up the captain just relentlessly grilling his first officer. The official report said his tone was condescending and belittling. This wasn't teaching, this was an interrogation. And it went on for almost an hour, creating this incredibly tense, toxic atmosphere in that tiny cockpit. By the time they got near Islamabad, when the stakes were highest, the damage was already done. The captain had basically bullied his co-pilot into silence. The first officer became passive, hesitant. He'd completely lost the confidence to speak up or challenge the captain. In any cockpit, that's dangerous. On this day, in this weather, it was going to be fatal. So, you've got the first officer totally sidelined, the weather is getting worse, and this is when the captain starts to go rogue. He begins making a series of decisions that just completely throw the rulebook out the window, taking all 152 people on board down a path he was just making up as he went.
Instead of following the standard airline-approved plan for circling, the captain decides to just invent his own route. He asks air traffic control for permission to make a non-standard right turn. ATC comes back and flatly denies him. They tell him, no, local procedures are left-hand turns only. But does the captain listen? Nope. He just improvises another unapproved route on the fly, one that would take them way outside the airport's protected airspace.
And let's be really clear about what this meant. This improvised path wasn't just against the rules, it was unbelievably dangerous. It was taking them directly toward the Margalla Hills, a high mountain range. Even worse, the captain had descended the plane below the minimum safe altitude. So now, they're flying blind in the clouds, they're off course, they're way too low, and they're heading straight for a wall of rock.
As the plane flew deeper and deeper into danger, the aircraft's own safety systems and the controllers on the ground began screaming that something was terribly, terribly wrong. This is the harrowing countdown to impact.
Okay, T-minus 60 seconds. An automated voice fills the cockpit. Terrain ahead. Then air traffic control radios with an urgent command, turn left immediately. But in the chaos, the captain gets confused by the autopilot. He turns the heading knob, but he forgets to pull it out to actually engage the turn. When he finally does, the plane banks, but it banks to the right,
deeper into the mountains. The alarm gets more frantic. Pull up, and in the final seconds, all the first officer can say is the terrifying truth. Sir, we are going down.
And what's so heartbreaking is that the voice recorder captured the first officer, fully aware of what was about to happen. You can hear him pleading with the captain. Sir, turn left. Sir, we have high ground ahead. But that toxic dynamic from earlier had left him totally powerless. He knew they were about to die, but he never took that final drastic step of physically grabbing the controls himself.
So you had this perfect storm. The terrible weather, the captain's reckless deviations, his confusion under pressure, and the first officer's inability to step in. It all led to a tragic, and by that point, inevitable conclusion. At 9:41 in the morning, completely hidden by the monsoon clouds, the Airbus A321 slammed directly into the side of the Margalla Hills. They were only 18 kilometers away from the airport. All 146 passengers and all 6 crew members were killed. There were no survivors. To this day, it remains the deadliest aviation disaster in Pakistan's history.
You know, after a tragedy like this, the first question everyone asks is why. And while the official investigation gave some answers, many experts feel like it didn't even come close to telling the whole story. The final report basically put all the blame squarely on the 2 pilots. It pointed to the captain's awful crew resource management, that's the training that's all about communication and teamwork to catch errors, and it pointed to the first officer's timidness. But critics say, hold on a second, the report failed to ask the bigger questions, like, did the airline itself have a culture that made junior pilots afraid to speak up? Did this captain have a known history of this kind of intimidating behavior? The investigation never really dug into the deeper, systemic issues that allowed this tragedy to happen in the first place.
And that really leaves us with the big, lingering question from Flight 202. Look, there's no doubt that the actions in that cockpit directly caused the crash. But it makes you wonder about that fine line between an individual's mistake and a system's failure. A system that might have set that person up to fail. It's a question that echoes long after those alarms in the cockpit finally went silent.